Giuseppe Pino Greco was dissolved in acid by his closest friends. Vincenzo Puccio was beaten to death with a frying pan in his prison cell, and Filippo Marchese was strangled by his own protégés using his signature technique. These are the shocking fates of Cosa Nostra's deadliest hitmen. Giuseppe Pino Greco. Our descent into this underworld of death begins with perhaps the most prolific killer in organized crime history, Giuseppe Pino Greco, a man whose nickname Scarpuzetta barely hinted at the ocean of blood he would spill across Sicily's sun-drenched streets. Born on January 4, 1952, in the rural outskirts of Ciaculli near Palermo, young Pino seemed destined for a different life. He was academically gifted, excelling in Latin and Greek during his school years, displaying a sharp intellect that contrasted sharply with the brutality he would later unleash. But in Ciaculli, where his father was a contract killer, young Pino grew up in an environment where violence was normalized. By the mid-1970s, he had begun as a low-level driver for Calza boss Tommaso Spadaro, navigating Palermo's underworld. What truly set Greco apart was his personal involvement in executions. While most bosses delegated, Pino relished getting his hands bloody. By 1979, his loyalty to the Corleonese clan propelled him onto the Sicilian Mafia Commission itself, an extraordinary feat for a non-boss. This coincided with the Second Mafia War, 1981-1984, which resulted in over 1,000 deaths across Sicily. Greco became Salvatore Totò Riina's premier enforcer, leading an elite death squad. His weapon of choice was the AK-47, which he wielded with lethal precision in drive-by shootings that left victims riddled with bullets. Greco's true notoriety came from the Room of Death, a nondescript apartment on Piazza Sant'Erasmo where dozens of victims were interrogated, garroted with ropes, dismembered with chainsaws, and dissolved in vats of acid or quicklime. Working alongside Filippo Marchese, Greco would pull one end of the rope while Marchese pulled the other, an accomplice holding the victim's kicking feet as life slowly drained away. Notable victims included Palermo boss Salvatore Inzerillo, gunned down in 1980, his body torn apart by AK-47 fire. In breathtaking cruelty, Greco hacked off Inzerillo's 15-year-old son's arm before shooting him in the head and dissolving the remains in acid. In summer 1982, he participated in the assassination of anti-mafia prefect Carlo Alberto Dalla Chiesa, killed alongside his wife and bodyguard, a murder that shocked Italy. Estimates of Greco's personal kill count vary. He was posthumously convicted of 58 murders in the 1987 Maxi trial, but Pentiti claimed he confessed to at least 80, while historians suggest the true figure could exceed 300. By mid-1985, Pino effectively ran the Ciaculli family as underboss, alarming Riina, who feared his independence. Greco was portrayed by turncoats as increasingly unhinged, crazy, driven by ambition that made him both revered and resented. His downfall came in September 1985 at age 33. Lured to his villa outside Bagheria, his friends Vincenzo Puccio and Giuseppe Lucchese turned on him, shooting him once in the head at Riina's behest. His body was immediately dissolved in acid, the very method he had perfected. The murder wasn't publicly confirmed until 1989, when Francesco Marino Manoia became a pentito and revealed the details. Sicily's deadliest hitman had been erased by his own techniques. While Greco dissolved in acid, erased by his own methods, this next hitman would shock Italy by doing the unthinkable, turning pentito, collaborating with prosecutors, and ultimately walking free in 2025. Giovanni the Pig Brusca. From Greco's dissolved remains, we turn to Giovanni Brusca, born on February 20, 1957, in San Giuseppe Hato, whose fate would take a dramatically different turn, one that would shock Italy and spark national debate about justice and redemption. Groomed from childhood for a life in Cosa Nostra, Brusca inherited a legacy of violence spanning generations. His father, Bernardo Brusca, 1929-2000, was a feared capomandamento who served multiple life sentences allied with the Corleonesi. By his early 20s, Giovanni earned the nicknames U Veru, the Pig, for his unkempt appearance, and U Scana Cristiani, the People Slayer, for his ruthlessness. He personally claimed responsibility for 100 to 200 murders, though he admitted losing track after 150. Brusca's infamy crystallized in the 1990s terror campaign. On May 23, 1992, under Riina's orders, Brusca orchestrated the Capazzi massacre. His team tunneled under the A29 Autostrada, packing 500 kilograms of TNT and Semtex box into 13 drums. Perched on a hill with binoculars, Brusca detonated the charge with a modified garage door opener as anti-mafia prosecutor Giovanni Falcone's convoy passed, killing Falcone, his wife Francesca Morvillo, and 3 bodyguards instantly. The blast carved a 60-meter crater and galvanized national outrage. In 1993, Brusca helped execute a mainland bombing spree. The Via dei Giorgofili blast in Florence killed 5. Milan's Via Palestro claimed 5 lives. Rome's attacks injured dozens, destroying priceless art in a campaign designed to terrorize Italy into negotiating with the mafia. But the nodder of Brusca's depravity came in the 1993 kidnapping of 13-year-old Giuseppe Di Matteo, son of Pentito Santino Di Matteo. Dressed as police, Brusca's men abducted the boy on November 23rd, then held him for 779 days in squalid farm hideouts, subjecting him to beatings and neglect. On January 11, 1996, Brusca ordered the execution. His brother and accomplices strangled the pleading teen, then dissolved his body in a 55-gallon acid drum, a disappearance that haunted Italy. Brusca's empire crumbled on May 20, 1996, at age 39, when Carabinieri raided a hideout near Agrigento. Facing multiple life sentences, Brusca turned Pentito in late 1996, a seismic betrayal that stunned Cosa Nostra. His testimony dismantled networks, naming bombers and politicians, aiding dozens of arrests. Reduced from multiple life terms to 26 years for collaboration, Brusca served in Rebibbia prison. Then came the moment that divided Italy. Released on parole May 31, 2021, after 25 years, Brusca ignited fury. Maria Falcone decried the pain and fear of his freedom, while politicians called it a slap to victims. On June 4, 2025, at 68, Brusca was fully discharged, a free man living under witness protection in northern Italy. The pig who slaughtered hundreds now walks free. If you thought Brusca walking free was controversial, this next hitman never got that chance. He was garroted with his own signature rope technique and dissolved in acid by his own protégés. Filippo Marchese. Our journey continues with one of the most terrifying figures in mafia history, Filippo Marchese, born on September 11, 1938 in Palermo, whose name became synonymous with the Room of Death and whose preferred method, the garrote, inspired nightmares across Sicily. Little is documented about his childhood, but Palermo's post-war poverty likely drew young Marchese into petty crime early. By his early 20s, he had aligned with local boss Vincenzo Chiaricane, honing his skills as an enforcer. Unlike strategic bosses, Marchese was a hands-on killer, favoring close-quarters violence. By the mid-1970s, he rose to boss of the Corso dei Mille family, a strategic district rife with smuggling routes. His notoriety exploded during the Second Mafia War, 1981-1983, when he became one of Rina's most trusted assets. Marchese's niece, Vincenza, was married to Leoluca Bagarella, making her Rina's sister-in-law, cementing blood ties. Marchese assembled an ad hoc death squad of young fugitives, including Giuseppe Pino Greco. He was posthumously convicted of dozens of homicides in the 1987 Maxi trial. Pentito Vincenzo Sinagra testified to Marchese's direct involvement in at least 50 murders. The epicenter of Marchese's terror was the Room of Death, a cramped apartment on Piazza Sant'Erasmo. From 1981 to mid-1982, Marchese and Greco orchestrated a macabre assembly line. Captured mafiosi were lured under pretexts of peace talks, then interrogated for hours. The pair would garrote victims using rope, Marchese at the head, Greco pulling from behind while Sinagra pinned the kicking legs. The method was intimate and agonizing, ensuring the dying man locked eyes with his executioner. Bodies were dismembered with hacksaws in the bathroom, chunks dissolved in vats of sulfuric acid. Sinagra's chilling testimony: it was invariably his job to hold the feet of those who died in the Room of Death while Marchese strangled them with a length of rope. Marchese's savagery, while invaluable to Rina's blitzkrieg, sowed his undoing. By early 1982, with the Corleonesi victorious but paranoid, Marchese's independent streak marked him as a liability. On September 10, 1982, at age 43, Marchese was lured to a warehouse under the guise of a strategy meeting. Waiting in ambush were Pino Greco and others, his own protégés, who seized him and garroted him with the same rope technique he'd perfected. They dissolved his remains in acid overnight. To maintain omertà, Rina's network spread a cover story. Marchese had accidentally shot himself cleaning a gun. Full confirmation came in 1986 when Salvatore Cucuzza turned state's evidence. Marchese was tried in absentia and sentenced to life for 58 murders, his ghost conviction symbolizing the mafia's self-cannibalizing paranoia. The master of the Room of Death had become another of its victims. Marchese vanished into acid vats, but this next hitman met an even more brutal end, his skull crushed by a cast-iron frying pan in his prison cell at dawn, murdered by Rina's orders. Vincenzo Puccio. From Marchese's dissolved remains, we turn to Vincenzo Puccio, born on November 27, 1945 in Palermo, whose ambition would prove to be his downfall in the most brutal way imaginable. By his late teens, he dabbled in street-level hustles before joining the Ciaculli mafia family in the early 1970s. Starting as a driver for Giuseppe Pino Greco, Puccio proved his mettle with quiet reliability that masked a ruthless core. At 5'10", with a stocky build, he blended into crowds, making him ideal for surveillance. Puccio was methodical, preferring revolvers for close hits or shotguns for ambushes. By the late 1970s, he descended to Greco's lieutenant in the death squad, racking up an estimated 20-40 murders. His baptism by fire came on August 20, 1977, at age 31, when he joined Leoluca Bagarella, Giovanni Brusca, and Pino Greco in assassinating Carabinieri Lieutenant Colonel Giuseppe Russo and his aide. The squad's stolen Fiat 128 pulled up during their evening stroll, and Puccio and the others unleashed a fusillade of revolver rounds and shotgun blasts that shredded the victims at point-blank range. The crown jewel was the May 4, 1980, execution of Captain Emanuele Basile. Puccio, with Giuseppe Madonia and Armando Bonanno, tailed Basile's Fiat Panda, ramming it before unloading pistols into the captain as he shielded his infant son. Arrested red-handed, the trio secured acquittals in 1983 through bribed witnesses, though appeals later overturned this. As the war raged, Puccio's squad amplified the carnage with AK-47 drive-bys and car bombs. By war's end, with Greco's star rising, Puccio chafed at subordination. In autumn 1985, Riina, sensing Greco's madness, sanctioned the betrayal. Lured to a Bagheria villa, Greco was shot once in the head. Puccio pulled the trigger. This patricide crowned Puccio as Ciaculli boss, granting him control of lucrative rackets. Yet from hiding, Puccio plotted a coup, criticizing Riina for monopolizing power, a dangerous game where dissent meant death. Puccio's throne crumbled on October 26, 1986, at age 40, when Carabinieri snared him at a Bagheria roadblock. In Palermo's Ucciardone prison, isolation bred recklessness. On May 11, 1989, asleep in his cell, Puccio was bludgeoned to death by cellmate Giuseppe Marchese, who smashed a cast-iron frying pan into his skull repeatedly, pulping his face around 6:30 a.m. Riina had ordered it, deeming Puccio too cocky. Marchese staged it as a brawl. The ruse faltered when Puccio's brother Pietro was gunned down in Palermo's cemetery that same day, 6 shots to the chest. A third brother, Antonino, fell on July 5, 1989, in a triple purge signaling Riina's wrath. The betrayer had been betrayed, Puccio's skull crushed by the same paranoia he'd helped cultivate. While Puccio's ambition earned him a bludgeoned skull in prison, this next hitman chose a different route, eternal silence in 41 bis isolation, where he remains imprisoned today at age 67. Giuseppe Lucchese. Our chronicle continues with Giuseppe Lucchese, born on September 2, 1958, in Brancaccio, whose chilling, unblinking stare earned him the nickname Occhi di Ghiaccio, Eyes of Ice, and whose loyalty would prove as cold as his gaze. By his early teens, he was already orbiting the clan's periphery, running errands for local capos. Nicknamed Lucchesedu, Little Lucchese, for his diminutive stature, he possessed a quiet intensity that belied his ferocity. By the late 1970s, at just 20, Lucchese had formally entered Cosa Nostra through the Brancaccio family. With his AK-47 proficiency and unerring aim, Lucchese became one of Riina's most favored hitmen, a core death squad member. Prosecutors accused him of at least 50 murders, though Pentiti hinted the true count could reach into the hundreds. His methods were brutally efficient: close-range pistol shots, drive-by AK-47 barrages, bodies weighted in the Tyrrhenian Sea, or dissolved in acid. Early in the war, Lucchese allegedly flanked Greco in the shotgun assassination of Stefano Bontate on April 23, 1981. On April 30, 1982, he and Prestifilippo fired into Pio La Torre's Fiat 131, killing the communist leader and his bodyguard mid-campaign for anti-mafia legislation. That September 3rd, Lucchese joined the Via Carini convoy ambush, unleashing Kalashnikov bursts into anti-mafia prefect Carlo Alberto Dalla Chiesa's armored Fiat, killing him, his wife, and aide. Witnesses described a figure who reloaded mid-fire without flinching, his eyes like frozen glass amid the chaos. Throughout these years, Lucchese's bond with Pino Greco was fraternal, best friends forged in blood, yet it masked the paranoia that would doom them both. When Greco's erratic behavior began to irk Riina, the boss decided action must be taken. Lucchese's fate pivoted on September 7, 1985, when Riina greenlit Greco's elimination. Lured to Greco's Bagheria villa, Lucchese and Puccio turned on their mentor. As Greco paced upstairs, Puccio drew a silenced Beretta and fired into his temple. Lucchese held the door, his eyes unblinking as his blood pooled. This patricide crowned Puccio as Ciaculli boss, with Lucchese as his underboss. When Puccio was bludgeoned to death on May 11, 1989, Lucchese was elevated to capo mandamento, briefly tasting power before the state's hammer fell. Lucchese's empire vaporized on April 1, 1990 at age 31, when a Dawn Carabinieri raid stormed his Brancaccio hideout. Already convicted in absentia during the 1987 Maxi trial for 58 counts and multiple homicides, his capture sealed his doom. Sentenced to multiple life terms plus 24 years, Lucchese stonewalled, invoking omertà. Incarcerated in Italy's 41-bis hard prison regime, solitary, censored mail, no visits, he became a ghost. Now 67, Lucchese remains imprisoned in maximum security, his ice-cold eyes seeing only the past, a man frozen in time and ideology. Lucchese survives behind bars with his ice-cold stare intact, but this next hitman wasn't so fortunate. 10 gunmen with AK-47s ambushed him on a darkened highway, ending his protest with bullets. Mario Prestifilippo. Our journey continues with Mario Giovanni Prestifilippo, born on December 7, 1958, in Ciaculli, heir to a dynasty of violence. His father, Giovanni Prestifilippo, ruled as capo of the Croce Verde Giardini family, a brutal enforcer who buried rivals under his groves. Tall and lean, with long dark hair and a disarming smile that masked his lethality, young Mario was no thug stereotype. A bright student who aced math and history, he dreamed briefly of engineering, but the clan's pull proved inexorable. By 1980, at 22, Prestifilippo was a made man in Riena's death squad. Judge Giovanni Falcone later marveled at their elusiveness. They've got men everywhere and we don't know them. A real and proper ghost army. Prestifilippo's toolkit, a .38 revolver, Kalashnikov for roars, claimed an estimated 50 victims from 1980 to 1987. His notoriety ignited in 1981. On April 23rd, he allegedly fired the opening shots in Stefano Bontate's driveway execution. That September 10th, in Zisa's Piazza Principe di Camporeale, he ambushed Carabinieri detective Vito Levolela. A stolen Fiat screeched up, and Prestifilippo's revolver spat 5 rounds through the windshield. 1982 amplified the terror. April 30's Via Carini ambush on Pio La Torre's Fiat. Prestifilippo's bursts claiming the anti-mafia politician. June 16's Circonvallazione massacre, spraying a rival convoy. The pinnacle was September 3rd. Dalla Chiesa's Fiat riddled on Via Carini, Prestifilippo and Greco unleashing 50-plus Kalashnikov rounds. But the Corleonese's 1984 triumph masked venomous paranoia. Prestifilippo's world shattered on September 7, 1985, when Puccio and Lucchese murdered Greco. Devastated, "Pino was my brother," he reportedly wept. Prestifilippo protested openly, a fatal heresy in omertà's court. On September 29, 1987, at 28, twilight claimed him on a rural highway near Baucina, 25 kilometers southeast of Palermo. Zipping on his motorbike from Bagheria, he hit a crossroads. 10 gunmen erupted from Olives, led by Giovanni Drago. AK-47s and shotguns hosed his bike, bullets shredding tires and flesh. Drago finished with a throat-shattering shotgun blast under the helmet, silencing protests forever. Discovered after midnight, his body went to Palermo Polyclinic's morgue. His mother, in widow's black, caressed the wounds with a white cloth, wailing, "O sangue do mio sangue," the blood of my blood. Magistrate Lorenzo Matassa witnessed, "That image tells me about Sicily and the ferocity of those days, a poignant testament to Cosa Nostra's human cost." The bright student who dreamed of engineering had been gunned down on a dark road, his protest against betrayal answered with bullets. Prestifilippo died in a hail of bullets for mourning his friend. But this next hitman did something far more shocking. He broke omertà entirely, becoming a pentito who now lives freely under witness protection. Calogero Ganci. From Sicily's blood-stained roads, we turn to Calogero Ganci, born on March 22, 1960, in Palermo's Noce district, whose journey from butcher's son to prolific pentito would shake Cosa Nostra to its foundations. As the eldest son of Raffaele Ganci, the iron-fisted capomandamento of Noce, a butcher by trade and Riena's unswerving enforcer, Calogero's childhood unfolded in the family's macellaria on Via Lo Giacomo. By day, the Ganci men sliced prosciutto and bantered with housewives, including the unsuspecting spouses of anti-mafia judges Rocco Cinici and Giovanni Falcone, who patronized the store oblivious to plots hatching in the back room. Initiated into Cosa Nostra around 1980 in a clandestine rite, the 20-year-old Calogero pledged blood loyalty. Slender and unassuming at 5'9", Calogero favored the AK-47 for ambushes. Pentiti testimonies pinned him to at least 79 direct executions, though his 1996 confession ballooned the tally beyond 100. June 1982 brought the Circonvallazione Massacre, where Ganci drove the getaway BMW as Antonino Madonia riddled the prison convoy. That September 3rd, on Via Carini, Ganci piloted the BMW shadowing Prefect Carlo Alberto Dalla Chiesa's Fiat. As Madonia unleashed AK-47 bursts, Ganci veered to block escape, ensuring the deaths that would shock Italy. July's Via Pipitone atrocity crowned his resume. With Greco and Madonia, Ganci parked the Fiat 126 car bomb outside Cinici's apartment, its 7 of TNT detonating at 7:20 a.m., vaporizing the magistrate and 3 others. In 1985, he joined the August 6th ambush on Police Chief Antonino Ninni Cassara. The 1990s escalated dramatically as Rina retaliated against the 1987 Maxi trial's convictions. Ganci surveilled for the Capaci bombing. On May 23, 1992, perched with Giovanni Brusca, he helped trigger the 500 kHz Semtex blast as Falcone's convoy crested, creating the massive crater that swallowed 5 lives. His fugitive odyssey ended on June 10, 1993, at 33, when Carabinieri stormed a Terracini villa, nabbing him, Raffaele, and brother-in-law mid-dinner. Imprisoned, Ganci's world inverted in 1996, at 36, when isolation shattered omertà. Becoming a pentito, he unleashed a torrent, naming Raina's commission, detailing 100-plus kills, betraying father, brothers, and uncles. "I killed for family, but family killed the soul," he wept to prosecutors, his testimony piercing convictions in multiple trials. Reduced from multiple life terms to 26 years for collaboration, Ganci earned semi-liberty by 2004. By 2025, at 65, he endures as a spectral ally to justice, testifying remotely in trials under witness protection in northern Italy. The butcher's boy who carved up an empire then testified its autopsy. While Ganci betrayed everyone and walks free today, this next hitman took the opposite path. Refusing to break omertà, he now languishes in 41 bis isolation at 73, still facing new murder indictments. Antonino Nino Madonia. Our chronicle continues with Antonino Nino Madonia, born on September 14, 1952, in Palermo's Resutana quarter, whose AK-47 would write some of Sicily's bloodiest chapters and whose current imprisonment represents the last gasps of a dying empire. As the eldest son of Francesco Ciccio Madonia, the patriarchal boss of the Resutana San Lorenzo Pallavicino Mandamento, Nino grew amid the district's post-war bustle. Tall and wiry, with a hawkish profile and unyielding stare, young Nino was schooled in extortion and pistol drills. By 1975, at 23, he was initiated in a Resutana basement right. Unlike the berserkers of Greco's squad, he was the precision instrument, an AK-47 virtuoso. As Resutana's de facto underboss by 1980, Nino enforced pizzo on 150-plus businessmen while moonlighting as Rina's trigger. December 1980 saw him in the strangling of boss Rosario Ricobono at a Monreal villa. Madonia held the feat as Greco twisted the cord. April 1982's Pio La Torre hit marked his star turn. Riding shotgun, Madonia unleashed 20-plus rounds into La Torre's Fiat 131, killing the communist leader who championed anti-mafia legislation. June's Circonvallazione massacre amplified the horror. Madonia, with Ganci driving, flanked a prison van, his Kalashnikov chattering 50 shots that killed the boss and 3 escorts. The apex arrived September 3, 1982. Madonia, passenger in Ganci's BMW, shouldered his AK-47, its 7.62mm Fury erupting in 43 controlled bursts, perforating Dalla Chiesa, his wife and bodyguard. This assassination sent shockwaves through Italy. July 1983's Cinici bomb was his logistical masterstroke. With Greco, Madonia parked the booby-trapped Fiat 126, its Semtex charge erupting at 7:22 a.m., claiming 4 lives. The Corleonese's hegemony crumbled as Pentiti broke omertà. Madonia hunkered in Resutana bunkers. His 1987 Maxi trial conviction, life for association and murders, served from Ucciardone. From 41 bis isolation, sensory-deprived cells banning contact, he orchestrated via lawyers. Acquittals flickered. 2014's Bosio exoneration, but convictions piled. Life in 2004 for La Torre. March 2021's fresh life sentence. By 2025, at 73, Madonia languishes in 41 bis hell. His appeals quashed amid Palermo probes reopening the 1980 Piersanti Mattarella slaying, with Nino and Lucchese indicted anew on January 9th. The AK-47 Ace, once Reina's blade, now a caged relic awaiting judgment for crimes committed over 4 decades ago. Madonia endures decades of sensory deprivation in maximum security, but this next hitman couldn't face that fate. At 55, he fashioned a noose from bed sheets and ended his life in Milan's prison hospital. Giuseppe Giacomo Gambino. Here's a man whose end came by his own hand. Giuseppe Giacomo Gambino, born on May 21, 1941, in Palermo, nicknamed U Tignusu, the bald one, for his prematurely receding hairline. By the 1970s, he had become Rina's trusted deputy, a role involving strategic counsel. By the late 1970s, he descended to Capo Mandamento of San Lorenzo, overseeing a domain that funneled millions through portside drug labs. As head of Rina's elite fire team, Gambino assembled killers including Greco, Prestifilippo, and Madonia. Estimates tally 10-20 direct kills, though his oversight inflated the toll into dozens. Prosecutors attributed him with 50+ in the 1987 proceedings. Early in the fray, he demanded monthly bribes from Giuseppe Gennara, a pizzeria owner. Gennara's refusal sealed his fate. On April 23, 1981, Gennara was gunned down in his shop. Gambino orchestrated Bontatti's execution. In grim irony, Gambino participated in Filippo Marchese's September 1982 betrayal. At a Palermo warehouse, he joined Greco in garroting the boss, the Room of Death's creator meeting its method. As war regent on the Mafia Commission from 1982, Gambino mediated purges, his San Lorenzo fief yielding heroin fortunes that bankrolled Rina's 1990s terror. Fugitive for years, dawn broke on January 15, 1993, when Carabinieri stormed a Milanese apartment, dragging the 51-year-old from bed. Multiple life terms cascaded for Gennara, Inzerillo, La Torre, plus 24 years for trafficking, his empire's assets seized. Transferred to Milan's San Vittore prison, Gambino entered 41 bis isolation. At 55, on November 30, 1996, in the hospital ward, he fashioned a noose from a bedsheet, knotting it to the bed frame, his body discovered at dusk. Rumors swirled, remorse, pressure to turn pentito, or Rina's spectral reach, but official autopsy ruled suicide. Gambino's unmarked grave in Musocco Cemetery swallowed the man who'd fed so many to acid, a warlord whose fire team forged an empire, only to hang from its own rope. While Gambino hanged himself in his cell, this next hitman proved that sometimes the best survival strategy is simply outlasting everyone else until time itself becomes your ally. Giambattista Pullara. Our final chapter follows a different trajectory. Giambattista Pullara, born around 1940 in Santa Maria di Gesù on Palermo's southeastern slopes, a man who would outlast most of his contemporaries through cunning, loyalty, and ultimately the erosion of time itself. Tall and imposing, with a gravelly voice honed by chain smoking, Pullara earned respect through quiet ferocity. By 1978, following the ousting of rivals, Pullara ascended as Reggente, interim boss of Santa Maria di Gesù, a strategic perch overseeing heroin refineries. Unlike squad leads like Greco, Pullara specialized in surveillance and spotter roles. His Fiat 127 charting routines for triggermen, estimated at 10-15 kills, his tally includes indirect orchestration. In the war's prelude, he and Pietro Loiacano plotted the April 23, 1981 ambush on Stefano Bontate, staking out the villa and signaling Greco's shotgun crew. Pullara's audacity peaked April 30, 1982, in the Pio La Torre hit. He personally orchestrated the Via Carini trap. Post-hit, from a phone booth near Santa Maria's church, he claimed the slaying for Proletarian Action, a phantom group to muddy trails. Beyond guns, in 1984, after the Caravaggio Nativity's October theft from Palermo's Oratorio di San Lorenzo, Pullara's clan hid the masterpiece in a Santa Maria barn, its Baroque shadows gathering dust until Pentito revelations in 2009. On a crisp October morning in 1981, Carabinieri swarmed a Santa Maria safe house, nabbing the 41-year-old Pullara mid-ledger. The 1986 Maxi spectacle brought convictions. Life for La Torre, 30 years for Circonvallazione. From Ucciardone to Regina Coeli, he served nearly 2 decades in 41 bis isolation. Released around 2001 on health grounds, rumors of heart ailments from chain smoking, he vanished into semi-obscurity, perhaps a northern Italian bolt hole far from Palermo's vendettas. By 2025 at 85, Pullara endures as a spectral elder, his Caravaggio shadow lingering while prosecutors' reopened La Torre files. No suicide or hit marred his exit. Instead, time's quiet erosion claimed the spotter's throne, a war ghost outlasting the graves he dug. Thanks for watching. If you had a good time, keep the adventure alive by clicking on one of the suggested videos on your screen right now for more amazing content.